Now that we have our acid pattern, which is the main element of our drop, we can start filling in the drop with supporting sounds. So I have a pretty specific approach for sounds like this. As far as what sounds they actually are, it can be anything. Any sound that you find that you like, that your ear is like, wow, that's cool, throw it in there, see how it sounds. But once I put that sound into my mix, I wanna make sure I'm not drawing too much attention to it. It's not standing out in the mix too much, but if I were to turn it off, it would seem like there's something missing. Now that's a pretty tough line to walk, but in my opinion, it's crucial for creating separation between your main elements and your secondary elements, because you don't want there to be too many main elements. It's like too many cooks in the kitchen. So let's jump into it, find some cool sounds and see how we can incorporate them in our drop. So I'm gonna start by going into the Oblivion sample pack and go through these synth shots. Okay, I like this sound. It's sort of like a filtered saw. I think we can pitch it down and put some reverb on it. So let's zoom in and we'll find a section in our drop that we can put this sound at. Okay, and I think we can put it at the end of bar 80. So maybe this quarter note right here. This way it'll transition nicely into where like the hats start picking up. So let's turn this down a bit. Okay, and this sound is at G sharp and our song is in A sharp, so we're gonna need to turn this up 2 semitones. Okay, now that's in key, but I think we can unwarp it and pitch it down an octave. And since we pitched it down, it's now become a longer sample. Let's just shorten this little edge here. Okay, that sounds great. Something I'm hearing is it's panned a little to the left. So I want to put a utility and pan it to the right using this utility. The reason why is if I pan it over here on the mixer, it's going to also pan our reverbs, our echoes, and anything else that we add after. I want to pan the source sound that's going into the reverb and the echo. So I've panned it with the utility. Now it sounds a bit more balanced. Then we can add our synth power rack, which is one of my favorite racks to put on any of my synths. And I'm just gonna turn up the echo, the OTT, and the drive. That sounds really nice. We can even turn up the reverb a bit. It sounds super compressed and saturated and spacious. Then the last thing we need to do is just mix this in. I want it to be very background and subtle. So I think that sounds great right there. So let's rename this synth shot 1 and let's find some other sounds. So instead of looking through some of these other synth shots, I'm gonna go back into our sample pack and I'm gonna look through some of the acid one shots. I really like this one, this acid shot 9. So let's find a spot in the drop for this. I'm gonna make a new audio track and we're gonna call this acid shot 1. So let's listen to the drop and try to figure out where we can put this sound. So I'm thinking since this synth shot happens at the end of this 2-bar phrase and there's nothing right here, maybe we can add this sound here. Okay, and that's way too loud. It's not fitting in the mix at all. So let's take this down like 10 dBs. Okay, and I think that's gonna fit. Let's duplicate this across, and I'm actually gonna delete this first one because I want just the acid pattern, the main element of our drop, to be front and center, showcased in the first 4 bars of this drop. So maybe we can have like some of these acid fills happen in the second 4 bars of the drop. So let's just add another. I think there's another acid shot in here that would sound really good as well. So I'm gonna make a new audio track. We're gonna name this acid shot 2. And I'm also gonna drop this down negative 10 dBs. I like this one. It's very similar to the acid 9, but that's what we want is just a little bit of variety there. So let's zoom in and let's place this acid shot here. Okay, that sounds great. And then the last thing I think we can do is just pan these. So I'm gonna pan the first acid shot to the left, the second acid shot to the right. Now let's listen to it from the beginning of drop 1.1. Okay, I think we can turn these down just a little bit more. Maybe a little bit more. They're still poking out a little too much for me. And then one thing I think we can do is we can add an EQ to both of these and just cut out some of the extreme lows, because we have the kick and the bass line. We don't need the low end from this sound. Let's do the same for this acid shot too. We'll just copy that EQ over. And I'm also hearing there's just a little too much low mids in this second acid shot, so let's just EQ that out a bit. And then I think we're gonna have a different sound for the end of drop 1.1 going into drop 1.2. So we don't need to repeat this sound, but I like this pattern. So let's just highlight this 8-bar section and we'll duplicate this all the way throughout our drop. But then I think I want these acid shots to happen like more frequently. I just don't want them in that first 4 bars. I think just the acid pattern should be front and center for that. So let's listen to the entire drop with the new sounds we just added and just see how we feel about it. Okay, I think that sounds good. Now I am hearing, I feel like we do need sidechain on the entire group, but I don't want to do that until the end because that can really start to muddy up our decision making if we're listening to everything with the sidechain on, because when you take it off, one thing could be really loud and you just realize that it doesn't fit at all in the mix. So that's sounding good. Let's just keep adding more sounds.